the first funding that we ever received from DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities was, I'm going to say, in 2011.
S. Robert Morgan owns a Central Theater located in Ward 8 of Southeast DC. Morgan has seen the many changes the Commission made over the last decade, and this year, the new funding formula is designed to spread the multi-million-dollar budget equitably across the district. Jen Clements, Managing Director at Theater Alliance of Washington, D.C. in Ward 8 says that in the last 10 years, this is the most funding the theater has ever received.
Funding this year was about double what it is in a year before. What would often happen in previous years was we would be awarded a set amount for general operating support. But yeah, suffice to say, the current model is hugely beneficial to companies our size.
The new funding formula gives $9.3 million in general operating support to 97 organizations with a budget of less than $1 million. A welcome change from small organizations in Southeast DC.
Having that city funding to propel the arts forward and ensure that we can do the work without scrambling to save every penny, or it just is a real unique thing that DC offers. And we've always been grateful for the support of the DC Commission.
The application process is strenuous. It opens up in January and artists only have about a month to turn it in. Once the written portion is complete, a panel of local artists review the applications before sending them to the Commission. Southeast DC comedian and arts grant recipient Tommy Taylor Jr. has been a part of that panel in the past.
They kind of rank the grants based on, the guidelines that are given, and then kind of, what you know about the certain art forms, whatever, or if it makes sense. And sometimes, because it's somewhat opinionated, it might be swayed one way or another. But they try to the best of my knowledge, they try to keep it very unbiased.
Accessibility of the application is also an often overlooked component, but Morgan, who is vision impaired, is impressed by the Commission's handling of their applications.
I will say, to the DC Commission's credit, it has changed tremendously. I mean, it really is a model. In fact, I just recommended that the National Endowment for the Arts, who funds DC Commission on the Arts in part, that they use the Commission's accessibility presentation as a template for what they need to be doing at the federal level.
But according to the Commission, the application process remains the same. The only major change is how they are allocating money. Prior to the new funding formula, the Commission automatically set aside 28% of their budget for the National Capital Arts Cohort, a group that contains the city's largest art organizations, leaving small and mid-sized groups to fight for what's left. Some of the larger organizations were upset they were no longer guaranteed funding. The Commission's chairperson, Reggie Van Lee, released a statement to Washington City Paper saying, "Of course, it is never our intention to place undue burdens on our grantees, and while their general operating support grant this year was markedly less than they had received under the NCAC grant for the past 2 years, for many it was still more funding than they had received in general operating funds in the years before the NCAC, excluding any special line item grants. Although the funding formula is targeted at organizations, individual grantees are also impressed with how the DCAH is funding Southeast DC. Sarion Lee, a first-time grantee from Ward 8, is happy to receive a grant, but wished there was more transparency in how long the process is.
I mean, I feel very grateful to receive a grant. This is a long-term project that I want to work on. I hope to really take this mind-body justice, health activist focus to another level. And And I'm patient. I'm willing to wait. It would just be nice to know that this is a process that takes a long time.
Amisha Stukes, another grant recipient from Ward 8, feels like the formula needs to maintain one thing.
I just feel like with all things, it just needs balance, because I could easily say don't give it to somebody twice, but that's impossible because I want to get another grant. So it's just like, it's so many different things to balance out with it, and I'm not sure if they can keep up with everything to make sure everybody's happy.
As for Morgan and Clements, they both retain a positive outlook on the new funding formula and are looking forward to the future of it.
It's too soon to tell, but I do see this as a step in the right direction. I think it feels infinitely more equitable than the models in the past.
And I commend them for their efforts, because I know through my conversations with people who are under these various organizations, that there are people who really are trying and who sincerely advocate for organizations.
Van Lee recognizes that this is the first year for the formula and adjustments are not off the table as he plans to continuously evaluate it. I'm Matthew Pittman for the Washington City Paper.